But Michael, can I ask you? Do you mind if I ask you? Can I switch?
Sure. No, let's switch up. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you have had from I don't know if you remember the first time we met, and it was years ago. I interviewed you in your office, and you were head of the RNC then,
Mm-hmm.
in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Were you in DC or where was your
In
office?
DC on Capitol Hill, yeah.
Did you have your own office somewhere else, or was it in Virginia? Or was it in DC?
It was in DC.
DC, okay.
Yep.
And so, and I believe that same week, because I was on a series, I interviewed Colin Powell, and I think I was going to do like Black leaders, and you were one of them. And you're always a good guy, but you have evolved, and you've changed, and you've allowed that, which I think is a sign of an intelligent person. It's like when you get new information, when you get facts, when you get new evidence, you evolve, and you're not strident in your belief, as I believe the folks who are part of the MAGA cult, and I would say cult now, who are part of the MAGA cult are doing. They can't change because it's a cult. They have to be deprogrammed. You were never there, but I'm just saying you had an evolution, and you never allowed yourself to get bogged down in the crazy conspiracy theories. And you saw your party going off the edge, and then you have this, your mom dies, and you have this crisis. What has that been like for you? Because that's a lot, I think.
Yes. As I said at the beginning.
And you're on MSNBC, for God's sake. It's not like you're on Fox, but I mean, I think you'd be in trouble.
It's not just coffee in this cup.
Right.
I celebrate New Year's every day, baby, at 10 o'clock a.m. I'm starting. It's a new day. That's an excellent question. My mother, that story is, and I probably should write it. I have the title of the book in my head, and it's just in my heart. It's Maybelle and Me, or Maybelle's Son, which is a little bit more accurate. It's just she told me how to be free of a lot of crazy stuff. I grew up in DC at a time where, she couldn't take me to parks in DC because they were for white only. We couldn't shop at certain stores. And in this environment, she taught me a love for a country that didn't love back, right? And she taught me to be an independent thinker. She always stressed that. Always think for yourself. She said, never follow the crowd. Never follow the crowd, because you are your own leader, and if you do it right, others will follow you. You don't, and then learn how to be responsible and accountable. And so all this stuff, man, it just came at me, and I just found it easier not to get caught up in other people's stupid and be in a situation where one thing is I always hated when I was at the RNC, and even when I was lieutenant governor, was explaining someone else's behavior. I'm like, what? I ain't do that shit. They did. Why are you asking me? You need to go talk to them. I didn't do it. And what does it matter what my opinion is of what they did?
Right.
And so that I've always sort of resisted that part of it. And thank you for recognizing the sense of always being open to new information and new thoughts, even when it doesn't sit well with what you think you believe. Mm-hmm. And that's why there were a lot of lessons in your book about challenging yourself with new information, challenging your faith, because that's the hardest thing. I believe this is what I have faith in, right? Mm-hmm. And there are times where I think God calls us to even challenge ourselves on that, right? I'm putting this in front of you, but it's up to you that free will thing is a bitch.
Okay. Can I ask you another thing?
Yeah.
Are you still a Republican?
Yes, I am, because it pisses them off.
But you realize you are not what the Republican Party has become.
I know, and that's that I stand. So I'm glad you said that, because one thing I wanted to get into with you at certain aspect of the book, which aligned with my training as a seminarian, when I was talking before about dying to self. The other thing, one of the reasons why we wear religious habits, one of the reasons why we wear the crucifix, one of the reasons why we have these symbols that we put out as outward signs is that we must be a sign of contradiction to the world. And so my faith journey, whenever I would go out in my habit, I knew in that moment I was being a sign to the world of something important, something possible, not just being in a religious community or going through all of those machinations, but this sense of loving others purely and openly without fear. You know, I love you as a brother in Christ, whether I know you or not. Right?
Yeah.
And that's important. That's an important sign that we should all be willing to share with each other. And yet, to points that you make very clearly in the book, we've allowed our politics, we've allowed our lack of faith, our lack of belief in ourselves, let alone others, to become the thing that is rotting us from within. And so it's easier to sort of hold on to that than to be that sign of contradiction, man, to go out there and live the gospel life and the gospel teaching in a way that others see that and appreciate it for what it is. And it may at some point call them to that, right? To that love of another neighbor the way you are loved.
So can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Okay. So when you look, we've come so far from, you remember when, you know, people would say, oh my God, George Bush is the worst. And
right. I remember well.
I wonder if perhaps then that you were exactly what the Republican Party needed. And I say that, I preface the question with this, right? Because this is like a, you know, maybe I'm soft pedaling a little bit, right? I'm wondering how you feel when you see people like Mark Robinson, or not he, I mean, that's the extreme. And then you see Byron Donalds, and then you see Tim Scott,
right?
All of these guys sort of who are black men and have a certain relationship as with the country, with America. And you know, I don't believe there's a more unique relationship with America than African Americans, right?
Agreed.
Folks. The second or one of similar would be Native Americans. Being brought here as slaves and treated the way we were. We have a unique relationship to this country. As I write in the book, as a black man, I have a unique relationship, a problematic relationship with the flag, right? But I love it, right? I love it for what it stands for. And as a gay man, I say complicated. I have a complicated relationship with the Bible.
Right.
And you see people conducting themselves in that way, especially considering our relationship to America and what this particular individual and movement is doing to the country. What do you think about that? How does that make you feel as someone who...
It pisses me off. It pisses me off. There are a few terms I could use that I think are a fuller expression of what I think of their behavior and think of them. I think you would know what those are. I'm at once very disappointed because that's not how our journey should end, given our history. That I've always believed and still believe that African Americans, Native Americans, especially, are uniquely called to this country to be that light that shows the value of the words written on parchment by the founders. Right. And I recently gave a talk and it was a room full of African Americans and women and cross section of folks. And I looked out, I said, we all know that these words weren't written for us. They weren't written for many of the people in this room. But the beauty of this journey is that we now own those words. They're ours. And we are a fuller expression of those words than the founders could ever imagine. And so it is incumbent on us to be an example of those words at all times, because we know they weren't for us, but now we have them. They're ours, right? We are the people that are part and parcel of forming this more perfect union. Yeah, baby, this is our ish too, right? We got this. So when I see, especially Black men, behave in a way that tarnishes that legacy of ours, that gives into the ill treatment of the Black experience, that advocate for the enslavement of their own people, it is regretful, it is disappointing, it brings shame on the community, and their place at the table should be removed until they learn better. Go sit your ass in the corner until you work out your shit, because right now you messing it up for the rest of us.
They need a
and
time.
you confuse. The last thing we need is confused white people. We need clarity in their eyes to see what our experience since 1619 has meant to this country. So we don't need you out here advocating burning books. We don't need you out here advocating for Black people to be enslaved because you want to own one. We don't need you out here, saying all this stuff about gay and lesbian people and trans people when you out there looking at trans porn. We don't need you out here with your bullshit talking about how much you love Donald Trump. You take your ass in the corner and you work that shit out. And then you are good to come back to the table and work with the rest of us to improve this country, to live up to the words that are written on that parchment.
If I was anchoring the show, I'd say Michael Steele, everyone.
And you just did, right?
Michael, if you said that on Morning Joe, wow. Imagine. That would cause a stir.
I try to say, but I can't use it the words that I'd like to really just emphasize the point.
Yeah, but I do. Look, I do, and that's why I'm here in my own independent, in my own studio.
But you know what? Ownership is a beautiful thing, baby. It's a beautiful thing.
It's nice, right?
I'm loving the set. That's nice. That's very nice.
Thank you.
Everybody, Don Lemon, one hell of a fine brother who's written, and I think, again, a very personal and important book. I Once Was Lost. It is his journey, but it's also ours.